Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, hey, I hope that you're doing well, you're having a great day, and you are ready for our show. So today on the program, the entire hour will be dedicated to a variety of stories, topics, everything, really focusing on hardware, video, graphics, and more, because today's show, we have none other than Dariush Derakhshani, longtime Computer America correspondent. Love to talk with him, and hey, we really try to focus our segments on, just kind of hardware and CGI and the state of graphics and what's happening out there. I would say that of all of our correspondents, this would be probably one of the best one of the best to also if you're very interested in maybe purchasing a new computer, or if you're just looking to stay up to date with the latest hardware, this is a good show for you. So with that being said, let's go ahead and just get this out of the way. ComputerAmerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including today's show notes. You'll find today's shows, past shows, future shows, and all the links to everything that we talk about here and more. Hey, you'll find it at ComputerAmerica.com. While you're there, check out some of the recent articles, reviews, stuff like that. We just got a couple of books in. I might be writing some reviews on some of the upgrades we have made here at the studio. I have asked multiple people how I sound, and they all say, you sound the same, Ben. So, I will explain why I went out and purchased such an expensive microphone to get the exact same sound quality. I don't know why. But, so we have a bunch of different articles that will be going up here in the next couple of weeks. So check that out. So with all that being said, ComputerAmerica.com, find us on social media, blah, blah, blah. Why don't we go ahead and just get started? So as I said before, Dariush Derakhshani, he has a long history and career, of course, in CGI, graphics. He's worked for shows such as South Park and many shows out there. And hey, he continues to work in the industry, teach classes, and of course, come on the show and share his wisdom with you. So everyone, welcome onto the program once again, Mr. Dariush Derakhshani. Dariush, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. And of course, for everyone out there watching the video portion, you can see myself and Dariush out there. And yeah, so it's been a little while. We haven't we haven't spoken since CES last year. It's it's been crazy. We've had a lot of guests, and I really do apologize that it's taken this long. But I hope that you're doing well.
I am. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's been good.
Perfect. So, and as I said with CES, a lot of guests come on the show. A lot of technology has been spoken of. But anyways, there's a lot that we can cover, and I think a good place to start our conversation, if you don't mind just jumping right into it, I think a good place to talk about some of the stuff out at CES, and I wanted your reaction to a lot of this, and really just kind of speaking in broad strokes. I'm not going to call it any kind of individual company, because they all showed off amazing things, and it seems like a couple of the trends, and you can speak to, if this is marketing or if people should really be interested in, pursuing these. The first one, of course, 8K versus 4K. 8K resolution has been everywhere, and it's really with TV, not so much computer monitors, but with, just 8K as a technology. What do you think of it?
I think it's going to be expensive at first. But I remember thinking between 4K and HD, maybe not that much of a difference. Depends how big the screen is and how close to get to it. I can imagine between 4 and 8K, it would be even more difficult to get to see what the difference is going to be.
Right.
I think a lot has to do with the source footage and the compression. So if you're watching something 4K on Netflix, it may look just about as good as a full HD Blu-ray, as opposed to like a 4K Blu-ray would look a lot better, and that's because of the compression coming through on Netflix. So there's a lot more to a digital image than just the resolution. And
Right.
with streaming and all that kind of stuff, compression is probably the biggest factor in the quality of your image.
And I will say that a lot of the footage that's shot out there is, of course, 4K if you're lucky, regular HD if you're not lucky, and of course, very, 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 very few things are actually 8K. One of the most notable is going to be, of course, the 2020 Olympics in Japan. That's going to be one, and, just kind of like in 2016, one of the first 4K, kind of features was the 2016 Olympics. They were shot in 4K, and that was kind of new. And of course, in the intervening 4 years, a lot of sports and live television is now shot in 4K. You can get movies, and of course, that are 4K resolution. I think Netflix and things like that offer like an upgraded 4K package. It's going to be a little while till we see 8K. So you think that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I just this summer worked on a 4K film. It's a nightmare. In the post-processing side of things, rendering things at 4K versus traditional 2K, these things take a lot more effort in post-production. Because when you're going from 2K to 4K, you're not just doubling the size of each frame, you're actually quadrupling it. You're squaring it up. So when you go from 4K to 8K, you're squaring that again. So between HD or 2K workflow and 8K, that's like a factor of 16. That's a lot bigger. Like if you have a 1 megabyte HD file, you're gonna have a 16 megabyte 8K file. And the files I was working on at 4K with minimal compression were 50 megs each
Wow.
frame. Yeah, so there's a lot to consider in the post-production process. And one of the reasons I actually ended up upgrading my home network is to be able to push these big frames around a little bit faster. So I can imagine going from 50 megs a frame to 200 megs a frame. It's a little bonkers.
Yeah, we're going to talk about your network here in kind of after the CES thing, and we'll get that out of the way quick. And then you made some very notable upgrades to your system there at home as well, to kind of increase your productivity. And by the way, I was kind of looking at I was kind of curious about this because movies and Hollywood and blah blah blah, whenever they film films, I guess there's the old film which was like 35 millimeter, and I think they have like another one that's like 65 millimeter or something like that.
70 millimeter. That ends up being IMAX.
Yeah, and of course when you look at that, I was trying to find like the resolutions that those actually come out in, and I think that like the raw of course there's digital, and many films out there are filmed in 4K digital, but then when you go with like the 35 millimeter film, that's like I think that can be upscaled all the way to 8K, and then I think like the 65 millimeter, 70 millimeters is just as you just said. I think that that can be scanned into 8K, and I think up to like 10K, and of course that's like IMAX, so it's like a wider, different resolution. and I mentioned this before the show, before we started, they're already talking about, well, getting the standards available so that eventually people will be able to support 16K resolution screens. I'm not saying that they're here, you need to look for them. I'm saying that they're getting the standards so that they can start, consider designing them. What do you...
And if streaming is going to be part of that, you're going to need a much fatter bandwidth into your home.
Oh, for sure. Just like you're getting, it's like 16 times the, really the data that's being capitalized by just one source. That's crazy. But my point with, talking about how films are filmed, I just find that kind of funny that this will be the first time when, the raw footage from the movie producers or, the people making the film is going to be less than that of people's, viewing capability, I guess. People had, 720p, they had, 360 resolution, 1080p HD. We've never had that flip where it's like consumers have better viewing technology than what the industry standard is.
Yeah, and I think part of that is the whole bandwidth issue. You need a lot stronger pipeline to be able to actually produce at that high a level. It's just a lot of data to push back and forth.
Yeah.
And it's slow enough working on 4K. 8K is going to be just that much slower, and that's a consideration. And that's why I think the display side, the consumer side, is going to drive the filmmaker side a little bit more now than
to maybe shoot in something a little bit higher. Of course, the other quote-unquote innovation, but really it's just a feature. The other feature that many televisions in particular were pushing, for TVs, it was 120 frames per second. For monitors, gaming monitors were everywhere at CES, and they all had to have 144 hertz refresh rate. But of course, for regular television, it was about 120 frames per second. How do you feel about that one?
The faster the refresh rate, the crisper it looks. And to me, when you're watching a movie, that takes away from the cinematics of it in a lot of ways. You want to see a little bit of softness and motion blur. When you're looking at sports and high action material, then maybe the faster refresh rates come in. But, I remember going to see The Hobbit at 48 frames a second in the theater, and it looked like a soap opera. It looked like video as opposed to cinema. And, I'm almost 50, so I'm a little old school. But, a number of filmmakers have come out against a high frame rate like that and said, for these films, they were meant to be seen in a certain way. Don't turn on this hyper fast scaling that your TV does.
I saw that.
Yeah. I think Tom Cruise was one of the people behind that.
Yeah.
And I get it. I totally get it. It's weird. Now, I don't know, millennials and Gen Y and whatever else is
those
coming
darn
up,
kids. Yeah.
Those darn kids. They'll see it differently because to them, a phone screen this big. That's all they. I mean, with my son, I'll be like, let's watch a video, and he'll just take his phone out. I'm like, no, let's put YouTube on the TV.
They're not averse to watching their phones. In fact, it's probably their preferred. You're right. Yeah.
I'm like, there's a 65-inch OLED like right in front of you, and he's on the couch watching his phone. I'm like, okay.
You gotta get one of those streaming kind of cast to the TV kind of thing, so he can still use his phone, but he can watch on the TV too.
Yeah, no, we can absolutely
Chromecast,
do that already. But he just would rather have it in his hands, I guess.
No. And of course, with these higher refresh rates, and actually that's a pretty good segue into another feature that I'm actually really excited for, because they were excited and they're marketing people. They were marketing it very well. And I told you about before, where, much like they're saying, don't turn on this hyper fast, kind of not interlacing, the thing where it fills in the gaps between two frames.
Interpolation.
There we go. That one. Thank you. I had another correspondent on, and we could not, for the life of us, remember that word. So interpolation. But yeah,
that's why you keep me around.
Exactly, because you know words. So, but with that being said, the company said that a new feature coming out is that they're going to, I guess it's like data embedded into the episodes themselves, and mainly streaming video. There's going to be data embedded in it that it won't change it kind of scene by scene, frame by frame, but it will change it at the beginning so that most people, when they buy a television, they set the brightness to a certain amount, a contrast certain amount, gamma a certain amount, and they never change it. Like, that is their TV. And whether or not they're watching live sports, a horror movie, if they're watching cartoons, all of that is going to stay the same. And, that all three of those are going to lend themselves better to different TV settings, but who wants to waste his time? So like I said before the show, they're going to embed data that's going to, on the fly, with your permission, change your television settings to that, to the, I guess, kind of preferred, that whatever the director or whoever manages that, the preferred settings for a television, and they will change it for you. So even though nothing changes, being able to change your TV's settings might actually make stuff look a lot better, just kind of picture to picture.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. My TV already does that when I switch inputs, or if I go into game mode, it'll load up whatever user setting. So this is actually pretty cool, because then the filmmakers, the producers, will have a set idea of what the film should look like, and then you see what they intended. And that's the biggest thing when you're creating digital content for viewing, is what you're seeing and what your audience is seeing. It's going to be different. The color's going to be different. The black levels are going to be different. So this is an interesting proposition.
And I think it would address those concerns of those very, very talented and rich and successful people that, if they feel that their film would be better, better received without that, without all these hyper fast frames or whatever, if they could, kind of push it out with the streaming services, or even embed it in, let's say, a Blu-ray DVD or something like that, if they could, kind of say, hey, we recommend these settings, would you like to, kind of change your TV? And you can go, oh yeah, sure. That, I think, would, kind of assuage those fears that everything's just going to have this hyper realistic look.
Right.
So that was a feature that's coming out. So another big one was, of course, the large size TVs, but that's because the resolution's going up. When you have an 8K TV, I think the largest television I saw 120 inch, but I think I think it was actually Samsung had like the wall, and I think that thing was like 12 feet by like 18 feet. Like, it was, I don't even know what it is in inches. It was 200 plus inches of television in one screen. It was very impressive. So form factors getting bigger, thinness, of course. This isn't really about this really isn't about display, but Dariush, one of the other features I saw was, I think it was like sharp. Yeah, it was definitely sharp. They had a television that you could see through, like it was completely transparent. But then they were showing, but then they were showing an image on it, and they could have, whatever image they wanted projected, and you could see it from either side and see through it at the same time.
Wow, so, that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. Little stuff like that, although that's probably more for like advertising and like, in like windows and stores and stuff. There was, of course, rollable, foldable TVs. That's going to be a big thing in the coming years. Just, so you don't, like you said, you have that giant TV on the wall. What if that giant TV suddenly becomes a little piece of furniture in the corner, and it can kind of, disappear, reappear at will.
Yeah, right.
So stuff like that. Overall, as far as display goes, there there was a lot of, kind of pushing everything that we just talked about, but at the same time, one of my big complaints about the show was that everyone was doing the exact same thing. And I guess I can't blame them. I mean, there's not a lot of flexibility when it comes to televisions, but, HDR back in the day, like when HDR first came around, it was like, oh, wow, HDR, this is amazing. There just wasn't that kind of newer technology. So
Yeah.
that was my feelings from CES. Now, you mentioned this a little bit ago, and I wanted to kind of jump into this with you. And it was about your recent tinkering with, I think you said, your home network. And we can talk about the importance of that. Obviously, you work on, as we mentioned, a lot of files and stuff like that. Like, this is for a business application, but I think, just everyday listeners would find this interesting as well. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people might have a network storage where they keep their movies and media and stuff like that, like a single or double drives.
Yeah.
Hooked up to your router or whatever. It's called a NAS.
Mm-hmm.
With this new project that I'm at 4K on, ran out of space on my existing NAS, and I have a 6-drive NAS with this particular partition had 4 terabytes.
Wow.
And that got eaten up pretty quick. So I looked into getting a new NAS, a QNAP. It's really great. But I also thought about the transfer speeds. From my computer to the NAS, I'm getting at best about 100, 110 megabytes a second. But, copying stuff back and forth, it was just so slow. As soon as I was able to work on my local SSD, things got much faster. But getting the footage to my local SSD took a while. So I looked into 10 gigabit networking, and it was pretty price prohibitive the last time I looked at it last year, and I noticed it's getting a little bit better now. And I ended up upgrading 2 network interface cards in my computers,
Yeah.
and I bought a new QNAP NAS so I can have 10 terabytes on that. But then I put a 10 gigabit card in that one, and I just ran a new router. This is where things get expensive. Getting a 10 gigabit router, they're like 5, 6, 7, 800 bucks and up,
Really?
because they're still pretty enterprise class. But I found one that has 5 ports from MikroTik
Mm-hmm.
that was 180 bucks, I think it was, somewhere around there. You also have to get the little modules to be able to run a Cat 7 or even a Cat 6 cable to it, because they come with what's called an SFP plus port.
Yeah.
This is where it got confusing when I was trying to figure all this stuff out. But it occurred to me, okay, so these SFP plus ports are common to 10 gigabit switches and routers, because they give you the option of going with a copper-based cable like Cat 6 or Cat 7,
Mm-hmm.
or going with fiber, which a lot of enterprise did, but now they're getting 10 gigabit out of copper, so you
That's
could
interesting. And
feasibly use
yeah.
the same cabling that you've got.
Yeah, and that's because I think a lot of Cat 5, Cat 5e, which would be found in most people's homes that were built probably in the 90s and so on and so forth, yeah, those are fiber. So you're saying that they're going back to copper. Next, you're going to tell me DSL is going to make a comeback or dial-up.
Cat 5 and 5e, they're copper as well.
Oh, are they?
Fiber
Okay.
ends up being a fiber optical. Basically,
Yeah.
is an optical signal as opposed to an electrical signal.
Mm.
And you can't really have that long of a run without spending a ton of money.
I gotcha.
But the MikroTik, when I found that made it much more feasible for me to jump to 10 gigabit. So I did. And I went from having, at best, about 100 megabytes per second to 700 megabytes per second.
Wow.
And that's bonkers. So I'm really happy about that. And that's partly because I put an SSD cache card inside the NAS as well, because your hard drives will max out at about maybe 200 megabytes per second. And then that became the bottleneck. So now I've got a one terabyte cache, the M.2 PCIe
Yeah.
SSDs. I've got two of those in a RAID 1,
Mm-hmm.
so they're backed up, and that's what they recommend. But it's stupid fast now. 700 is just it's so much better
So,
that I can actually work directly off the NAS as opposed to copying to my local, working on that, and then copying it back to my larger NAS.
yeah, and then I was thinking that when you work on these large files, when you, let's say you finish all the work, you're working real time and you get it done. At a residence, you might have access to gigabit internet. I don't know where you live, but at the same time, would you, I guess at that point, just kind of take out the hard drives and send them, kind of postal, or do you try to transfer that over the internet?
We do a little bit of everything. We'll actually copy to a USB drive and have a courier pick it up and take it over to the to Technicolor, for example, for the color sessions. Or if we have enough lead time, we'll actually upload. And I've got 300 megabytes down and 20 megabytes up.
Yeah.
So I'll let something upload for 12 hours. I'll also zip it too. 50 megabytes per frame can zip down to probably about 30 megabytes per frame, give or take. So so that saves a lot of time as well. But we've spent days and days and days going back and forth with FTP and Google Drive and other more secure transfers. But every now and then we gotta copy to a drive and drive it over there.
Right. No, and of course, it really sounded like that you started you started this whole thing with just, here's what I need, and then you started like you said with the bottlenecks, you just started solving all the bottlenecks with different parts and pieces, and I guess that's a really good thing. And I'm sure that you would have preferred an all-in-one solution that some company is catering directly to people with your needs, and you bought it off the shelf. But did you really find it all that hard to kind of piece this whole thing together? Like how long did this whole process take you?
It took a while, mostly because of my own ignorance with networking. At that level, I just buy a 1 gigabit switch and some Cat 5 or Cat 6, and I'm done.
Yeah.
But 10 gigabit is still pretty enterprise oriented, so there's not a whole lot of home solutions. So I think we're on the verge of it maybe in a year or two becoming more of a home-based thing, especially when we're talking about pushing 8K data around, because I could see having, a home network and having 8K movie files on your server, push them right to your TV. You're going to need better than 1 gigabit
Yeah.
Ethernet. And forget about Wi-Fi. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But the solution came literally from me. I need more storage, and I need a new NAS. And then it became about how fast these things. And I ordered a lot of stuff on Amazon, making sure that they have free returns, because I didn't know if something was going to work as well or if this combination not. And I ended up getting twice as much as I needed, and testing for probably 2 or 3 weeks, and then sending back half of that stuff, replacing a few things, and finally I've got something that's working. Although I still have cables going to my server closet, so I can't close the door. I've got to drill some holes and run some cabling, but it's been running for about 2 weeks, and I'm confident that it's working well now.
So the only thing that I can think of in the near term, and by near I mean like the next 2, 3, 4 years, that might actually solve everything you just did. And I know that you said Wi-Fi wouldn't cut it, but I'm sure that you've heard the cell phone companies are plugging this everywhere. 5G. 5G mobile data, whatever. It turns out you can actually buy a 5G antenna yourself. Like, you don't have to wait for Verizon to do it. If you want it in your home, yeah, you can go out and buy one for like $800. It's definitely an investment, compared to a lot of other solutions. Not a lot of people are going to go for it. But if you buy your own antenna and you essentially kind of supply your own data from your antenna to your receiver, you could get 10 gigs over the air, and of course within your own house, depending on walls and signal degradation, stuff like that. Maybe 5G is looking more like a solution, because again, 10 gigs is a lot.
It is a lot. I don't doubt that. I have a hard time seeing it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Wireless is better, and
yeah.
One of the reasons why my son moved to an Oculus Quest over his HTC Vive was to go wireless. So these darn kids.
Yeah, no, and wireless is certainly going to be a thing, and I actually mentioned this a little while ago to you, but we recorded an interview with DisplayPort as of the time of you and I talking about this. It hasn't aired yet, so who knows. But I will say that DisplayPort, they are pushing their DisplayPort 2.0, and it was actually a very interesting interview because we were talking about DisplayPort versus HDMI. I'm not sure if you have a preference, Dariush, over the two.
I like DisplayPort. It's got a higher bandwidth than HDMI. Even HDMI 2. HDMI 2 can do 60 hertz at 4K.
Yeah.
But I believe that's pretty much it. I think the distances are longer with HDMI, but I think DisplayPort, has more bandwidth. But I want to see everything just turn to USB-C. It's a much easier connector.
Oh, well, and that was really the thing, was that DisplayPort and the technology behind it, they actually are pretty hardware agnostic. So you could get DisplayPort speeds over USB-C. Like, they make that possible. And you can actually get DisplayPort speeds over HDMI. Like, if you have like a DisplayPort to HDMI adapter, the DisplayPort will, turn things in, so that they're compatible with HDMI, and it runs perfectly the same. The big difference I found out was that DisplayPort is an open technology with no royalties, no fees, or anything like that. HDMI, you actually do have to pay royalties to utilize it. But yeah, HDMI is a bit older, a bit longer in the tooth, and DisplayPort can do everything. And as you can see, I threw up a little chart there. DisplayPort 2.0 is going to be able to handle about 80 gigabits per second, and of course I think that's 2 streams of data, so you can have like 40 upload, 40 download at the same time. But yeah, I mean, it's these data speeds are coming, so they're prepared for it. And of course, since you mentioned it, those speeds, wired or wireless, we can talk a bit about Oculus Quest and your son moving from one to the next. And really, every time we've talked about virtual reality on the show, it's kind of like 3D TV. It's like, is it going to stay, and is it going to live, and is it going to be a thing? And actually, out at CES, I was talking to a lot of these guys, and when it came to like the display technology, we were talking about kind of resolutions before. They said that headset makers are really hoping that the thing that's going to push VR from kind of a niche, kind of game system, whatever, and turn it into a mainstream thing, they're hoping when they get 10K resolution per eyeball, that's going to be where things look photorealistic, to a human eye. Because when you put it on now, you have one, I haven't used one in quite some time, you can tell you're looking at a screen. Like, there's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. But I don't know if that's the only thing. I think it's a matter of content and what you're able to do with it and how convenient it is. And the HTC was not convenient, at least the Vive wasn't that convenient, because you're tethered to your computer.
Mm-hmm.
With this, you could be anywhere doing it. as long as you've got a charge.
Where does the data come? Is it all stored on the headset itself? Where?
Yeah. The unit itself, I think, has, I want to say 128 gigabytes or 64 gigabytes.
Hmm.
One or the other. And you basically download the application directly to the headset.
I see.
So there's no streaming, there's no cable. Now the cool thing is you can connect it with a USB-C cable to your computer and then run, you got to do a little bit of this and that, and then run Steam VR through it. So that's really great because all of his Steam VR games will now run on the Quest. A few are still a little janky. It's still kind of early in getting all these working out, but it's a lot better than having sensors up on the walls, which my wife hated.
Oh yeah.
And having this really thick cord getting all bunched up and twisted around. So, I think the more convenient this becomes, I think the real mainstream ability comes in AR.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's when it's going to be most. You're looking at stuff like Pokemon Go, but when you make that a lot more powerful, when you can hold up, Yelp has this sort of AR thing where you can hold up your phone and see what's around you as far as restaurants and stuff. That's, I think, going to be the most mainstream ability next.
So, and let's see, there's two things I want to mention about augmented reality, and the first one's going to be pretty obvious with cars. One of the biggest car technologies is that they will be projecting images onto your windshield. So like instead of things that you would look on your dash, like let's say direction or speed or, hey, take a left up here, they are projecting images kind of like at the bottom center of your windshield that would normally, kind of be the hood of your car. That's now going to be useful information projected directly onto a car windshield. That's coming.
I used to have a heads-up display in my old car, and it was basically there was just a screen in the dashboard, and its reflection in the windshield would give you the heads-up display. Having it projected directly on would give you a much better, much higher resolution.
It looked great.
Experience.
It definitely did look great, and the technology is really coming into its own. I actually have a video of it on my phone where they kind of gave a demonstration. I haven't posted like anything I took at CES, but
it takes a while to get through.
I feel like it's probably too late to do it, so who knows. But I will say that the other useful augmented reality, I found this really cool. We're probably gonna have them on the show eventually. They were not a satellite company, a telescope company. There we go. They were a telescope company, and essentially they finally work with phones. And they said the big contributing factor to phones was that the camera wasn't good enough. Except now on most flagship phones, it should be good enough. You can put your phone into the telescope, and the camera would kind of film and take in the light from the telescope, and it would kind of say, okay, this star's here, that star's there, you're looking here. And then on the phone you can kind of scroll and swipe your way around the sky, and you can say, I want to see Alpha Centauri, and then like you hit the button, and the telescope would reposition itself to perfectly show what it is you're seeing on your smartphone, and then you can look through the telescope and see what it is. But essentially, it's using augmented reality, kind of using the telescope and your phone at the same time to, control the thing. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I think that's pretty rad.
So,
yeah. I think you and I agree with that. I mean, AR is the more democratized.
My big part with AR and all those stories that probably just waste time. My big point with those is that it's gonna start slipping into other products. Like it's not gonna be like it's an AR revolution. Everyone needs to run out and buy AR glasses. It's gonna slowly pervade where it makes sense. Like it's it's where it doesn't make sense, or it's gonna be cost prohibitive. It's not gonna come out. But where it can easily slip in, like as I mentioned, cars, it's just gonna show up one year.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
But AR and VR are fundamentally different animals, and VR, like the Oculus Quest that we have up there, that is very good for putting you in a situation and kind of immersing you much more than AR ever could. And I guess as we talked about movies, there hasn't been that that quintessential, I guess, kind of VR movie. There have been some games experiences, and I think there was like there was a movie that was shot kind of like in first person. It was like an action film, and it was like Psycho something or.
Psycho Henry or
something Henry. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I think that was supposed to be a VR film, and then it got a full theatrical release. But we still haven't had that, the fundamental, you got to get VR to try this kind of thing. So we're still waiting on that.
Yeah, and I think VR is going to live on in a lot of niche areas in gaming, training, education.
Yeah.
It's very useful in that way, but I don't think it's going to end up being an appliance that you have to have like a PlayStation or an Xbox.
I think kids
necessarily.
I think kids would be, and I say kids because I know that I would respond very positively to this. Instead of reading a book about a scenario, if people were to recreate, let's say, living conditions in the 1400s, as opposed to reading about how something happened, or creating pivotal events like, Battle of Little Bighorn, who wouldn't want to see a bunch of people die? But and I say that because I just realized that was a very bad, probably a way to take it. But being able to immerse someone and teach, I think, is going to be huge in the coming years. It's just
it's fascinating. I saw a presentation once where this company, they do training for sexual harassment and sensitivity training in the workplace. And they found that their training in VR reached people more than their regular just video on a screen training, because people felt more connected to the subject material when they were sitting in that situation that says, hey, Bob and Judy are having this moment at work. And so I found that really telling, and I think that's really where it's going to make a sustained impact.
Yeah, it's like I said, that immersion, and it's very interesting that training, and I don't think anyone ever thought that VHS was going to be the best way to train people. I think it was just an easier way to train people. Instead of having to dedicate someone, they put them in front of a TV, pop in a tape, and walk away. Like it was the most convenient, and so VR, AR, stuff like that, going to be very important. Now, I wanted to jump topics here because we have a lot of stuff to talk about, and we just haven't jumped to them. One other thing I wanted to mention, because I guess this is related, I guess. Now, Galaxy S20, S20 Plus, and S20 Ultra, we have not mentioned it at all here on Computer America. And one of the most pivotal, one of the most talked about features of really, I think it's the S20 Ultra, besides having 5G, was going to be the 108 megapixel camera, as you can see there on the screen. And then, of course, you can do the zoom feature, which, and you can correct me, Dariush, if I get this wrong, 100 times, 100 times zoom. And what that could mean, I guess, for, I guess, I don't say spying, but I don't. In your daily life, would you ever see yourself using 100 times zoom, or is that going to be like, hey, look what my phone can do, and then you'll never use it again?
There's some people that I like to stalk, and this is going to make it a little bit easier. I'm just joking. FBI, I'm just kidding. I think it's interesting. I think it's useful. But essentially, with 108 megapixels,
right?
This kind of zooming is essentially just kind of cropping into that part of the image and then blowing it up. So it's not quite the same as having like a crazy telephoto lens on your camera and optically, getting in close. It's literally about taking a picture that is so densely packed with pixels that you can literally just cut a portion of it out, and when you look at it, it holds up on a screen. And that has to do with DPI, dots per inch.
Mm-hmm.
That's how many pixels you can cram into a certain amount of space. So typically on a screen, you're at a 72 dots per inch. So if you're capturing an image that's 700 dots per inch, you can zoom in a whole bunch, cut a small bit of it out, pull it out, and have an image at 72 DPI that'll look fine on your screen, but is now significantly less resolution than the full frame that you took.
Yeah.
So
it's
not really zoom in the photographic sense of zoom, which is optical and lens based. It's more of a scale, crop and scale.
Yeah, and I believe that's why when we talked about taking good photos on your phone, never use the digital zoom, because really the digital like iPhone, I think it was like with like the iPhone 8, they added a 2 times optical zoom. That was the only thing that there was, and then many other phones, Samsung probably had it before iPhone did, but many phones had 2 times optical zoom and a little bit better. But if you wanted to take a photo, just do 2 times zoom and take your photo, because anything else, that's just you kind of pinching with your fingers, and that would be essentially the digital zoom. Known that for quite a while.
You can do it better yourself in Photoshop.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And then, I was looking at the thing. They had, Sub Note 5 here on the Samsung Galaxy website. They have super resolution zoom, includes digital zoom, as you mentioned, which may cause some image deterioration. And that's directly from Samsung themselves. So they admit it. They know.
And also keep in mind compression. People don't really think about this, but compression is the number one thing that is going to alter how good your image looks. So you could have a billion mega, what's a giga? You could have 1,000 gigapixels.
Yeah.
But if you're compressing the hell out of it, you might as well just throw the whole thing away. So there's a lot to go to that. So depending on how the phone saves that data to its internal memory, does it keep it as a JPEG? Is it a highly compressed JPEG? Is it a RAW format? How much color information is retained? All of those have an immediate impact on how good your image is.
So I've been looking at this dog on the Samsung website, and they give a little demonstration. And let me just kind of restart this if you're watching the video portion, where they start with one very zoomed out image of a beach, zooms in a little bit more. There's a dog on a blanket, and zooms in a little bit more. You can clearly see it's a dog on a blanket wearing purple or pink goggles. So very, very well and good. But the only thing I don't like about it is that it's not a true representation of a single image being zoomed in on, because as you can see, the dog changes position every time. Like they're very clearly 3 different pictures, and it's not a true representation of what your camera will be able to do. So I don't even know why they put it in there.
That's very good of you to point out, because that is not cool.
Yeah, and even in the in the other demonstration with the gentleman being held in the crowd, you can see people's hands are in different positions, and even his arms are in different positions, and he's looking a different direction. Clearly, they I guess they're like facsimiles, where this is from the same distance, 0, 10 times zoom, whatever.
Take it with one phone and then take it with another phone.
Well, probably professional cameras, as you know. Probably very, very professional cameras. But yeah, so digital zoom is going to be a thing. And it's even more than that. Interpolating, as we kind of mentioned, that's for moving films, but for, this kind of thing with 100 times zoom, I think it's going to fill in details that aren't actually there. It's going to kind of say that, using artificial intelligence, saying that this is probably a picture of a tree. If you zoom in 100 times, it will probably start filling in pixels that aren't actually there in what would probably look like a tree, but it won't, it'll kind of be like a fake photo, I guess. I would assume.
Yeah, it'll copy, duplicate pixels to fill stuff in an intelligent way, but
yeah,
Yeah, if you're that invested in zooming into something and you want a great picture, go get a Nikon or a Canon and some really great lenses. Now, don't get me wrong; these photos are great, and I used to have a Samsung S9. Great photos without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But there's only so far you're going to go. I'm going to be doing a photo shoot later this Thursday. I'm not doing it on my phone. I'm going to do it on my Canon SLR.
Right.
It's just you're going to get a better photo if you're a photographer. But anyway, you can
Yeah.
get some amazing stuff on your phone. 108 megapixel. I'd love to see what that looks like after I take a picture
Yeah.
with it.
I think it, and by far it will be the best camera that's ever been in a
I
smartphone so
think you're
far.
right. Yeah, for sure.
But
It's too bad. Yeah, it's too bad my Samsung phone didn't do very well as a phone, and that's why I went back to iPhone.
I blame
day.
Bixby. It's all Bixby's fault.
Oh, Bixby was terrible.
We actually just purchased a fridge with Bixby built in, and yeah, not a fan. Not a fan. That guy controls my milk, and I'm not a fan. But there you go. So I just thought that that is one of the most talked about features is like 100 times zoom. You could do this, you could do that. And I'm like, it's gonna be a good camera again, just to kind of recap, but it's still going to be a kind of like a novelty. I mean, it's great that people can have this in their pocket. I mean, I don't know how big your pockets are, Dariush, but I don't think you can fit your single lens your
This is true.
Yeah,
my
in your
SLR
pockets.
Will not fit in my pocket. No,
Yeah,
it will not.
so
and it's heavy as heck.
exactly. So, but hey, better. And then they also mentioned like you can shoot 8K video, but as you mentioned, these things better have a darn good memory because these photos, 108 megapixels and 8K video, they're going to take up a lot of storage. And
yeah, unless they're highly compressed, in which case the video is going to not look.
And then why shoot in 8K if it's just going to be highly compressed? It's going to look worse than 4K. So.
Exactly right.
So there you go. So let's see some of the other topics. We have about less than 10 minutes here on the show, and I'm looking through some of the other. We can talk about this real quick, and this is just a convincing deepfake, and we'll play it here without sound here on the video portion. But essentially, it's an episode of Star Trek, and I'm trying to think of the episode. The article here mentions that it's Bezos ends up as a big-headed alien called Telosian. The two discuss human customs and reactions to captivity. It's obviously Shatner and another actor from the original Star Trek, and yeah, it's Bezos and Elon Musk talking with each other, deepfakes. As our CGI expert, Dariush, I thought, we haven't really talked much about deepfakes and how you feel that something like this is just some person in their spare time doing this for fun. Like, they're not trying to convince you that Elon Musk was the original Captain Kirk. They're doing this for fun.
Yeah, it's going to make the next election a lot of fun to deal with. That's
true,
without a doubt. Yeah, there's a lot of implications with this. I think it's fascinating. I don't know the specific mechanics, but I imagine there's a lot of sampling of existing footage.
Yes.
Just like they do with the audio deepfakes. They sample the certain number of phonemes and sounds, and then they're able to cut those together and change the timing and speed to make it all seem like it's being spoken eloquently. Same thing here. There's a lot going on. Color correction, picking out the right angles and the right mouth positions, and yeah, it's bananas. Honestly, the video-based deepfake is I don't know what to think of it. It's coming so much faster than I thought it would.
And really with photos, with audio, and with video, my only I can sleep safely at night kind of feeling is that Google, Apple, Microsoft, like a lot of the big tech companies, the ones who are kind of making this possible in some ways, and of course, things like YouTube make it possible to spread this kind of stuff. They're working on algorithms to be able to tell when something was edited. So hopefully, whenever these things show up in your feed on Twitter, on Facebook, however you get them, there's going to be a big asterisk saying that something in this was edited, something in this was digitally altered, and be aware that happened. That's what I'm hoping for. Is that even though it looks very convincing to the human eye, I think on like a data like analytic kind of detail,
you're right.
It's going to be very obvious when something is altered.
Yeah, and I hope they do put those in sooner than later, because like I said, everything with fake news and fake news reports and blogs and influencers and stuff like that. This is it's scary. I was born in Iran, and we left during the revolution. Seeing a country fall apart like that, it can happen. It can happen anywhere, and we're not. I don't know what spectrum of the political gamut anybody runs, but this is a very real thing that could be weaponized in many ways.
Everyone thinks that it can't happen here, it would never happen here, and
but it can.
Crazy things have happened. Absolutely.
Yeah,
so
look at the McCarthy era.
Let's hope Elon Musk is not pivotal to the American downfall, but yeah.
As long as all deepfakes happen to original Star Trek footage, then I'm totally cool with it.
Well, and really, like you said, it's a matter of sampling, and the more video footage, the more audio footage you have, the better the deepfake. There have been very, very good ones of, like, let's say, late night talk show hosts, like Colbert has shown some. Ellen DeGeneres have shown some. Deepfakes of President Obama have been around forever. Trump, of course, has many, many, many. And really, I think that's the thing, is that the more video footage and the higher quality the video footage is going to be, the better these deepfakes, because they do sample, like let's say this video of the original Star Trek. They do sample directly from existing video. Like, they don't reconstruct Elon Musk's face in real time. No, they just sample from tons and tons of video and just try to make things fit. So they're going to get better. Yeah, it's already impressive, and they're going to get better. So, yeah, the implications are certainly there. Last story, last topic. I'm not sure if there was anything here that we didn't cover that you really wanted to. There were, of course, sneakers that we didn't talk about. I think it's a nice, light-hearted way to end the show, if you would like.
Yeah. No, talking about immersion and VR, I stumbled on this very recently, and it's basically speakers or subwoofer inside your shoes to make you kind of really feel the bass. So yeah, that's hardcore. And what are they? A few $100? It's like,
I think, let's pretend that's $450. $450, and all the way from size 7 to 14. That's so different, I guess, but at the same time, like
it's interesting.
I'm trying,
kind of like bone conduction headphones. You've heard of those, right?
Yeah.
They kind of sit around your neck and they pass sound through your skull.
I know that they sit behind your ear, but there's also ones that go to your neck as well. But yeah, and bone induction, I think, by the way, just so no one writes me an angry email. But bone induction, has been proven, but of course it's not all that widely, because of course you still hear everything alongside your music, so it's not, it's not the best quality. Being able to hear feel bass in your feet, that's actually one of the, I guess, kind of shortcomings of a smartphone, is that they're so small and compact. They don't have any room for like a subwoofer. That is a drawback from from smartphones. So
yeah, but your feet though? I could see putting a subwoofer like in your boxer shorts or in like a vest or something that's a little more connected to your body, but your feet.
And
I don't know.
a nice big patch on your chest, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Then you can feel the music. So yeah, who knows? These may be the most mind-blowing thing ever, but I thought that was just kind of funny how
Yeah.
far some things will go.
Yeah, and luckily they have all the stylishness of those old. What were those goofy shoes that all the soccer moms were wearing?
Yeah, right. That were supposed to tone your
Yeah.
abs or something as you walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had that weird.
Yeah,
rocker.
and essentially they made you hobble around, but of course it made you work more muscles. Weird shoes.
Yeah, or you could go to the gym.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Oh, geez, yeah, I forgot what they were called.
Those were all the rage a couple of years ago, but now they're gone. So I will say, Darius, though, with that, yeah, we're out of time. Unfortunately. So, of course, if people want to find out more, they can find you on Twitter. And, of course, we're going to include that in the show notes and stuff like that. I apologize for not getting you on the show sooner. It's been way too long, and I hope that, hey, we can start up our regular schedule here before long. But I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking with us.
Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And, hey, thank you so much. And we'll catch you next month. And, between me and you, hopefully some more interesting hardware and stuff like that comes out. Hopefully, I think some new processors and some new graphics cards are due for release. So we'll talk about that. Perfect. So everyone, Dariush Derakhshani, again, until next month. We'll see you then. Everyone else out there, thank you so much for tuning into the show. We'll catch you next time, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. And until then, have a good one. Bye, everyone.